piston, rod, crankshaft, shims, timing gear, polished. Now let's get this show on the road. The crankshaft. Right there it is. And we done already polished it. A little bit of color, discolor right there, but it seems to be on the same plane there. Just a little embedded color, but it did clean up quite well there. Now what is that? About 220 wore out paper there. Done already shined that up with. It's cleanup only. This was not turning the crankshaft or nothing like that. It was just kind of polish, and it did clean up quite well from one end to the other. And I did go ahead and paint that journal there with some Rust-Oleum primer, and then I put some slick paint on top of it, an oil base, as the inside of the engine also, except the crankcase. I didn't get up in there and do that crankcase, but I did them side covers. And but not to get off subject, the crankshaft. And you can see there that I kind of went on ahead there and rounded off that grease hole right there, little bevel. Make it slide around kind of easy. And I think with the shadows and everything, I don't think you're going to get a good picture of that crank journal there. It did end up right in the middle right here with a line that it's embedded. It's not up. Part ways around right there, a wire line, but it cleaned up really good. Proud of that crankshaft. And the caps, scraped inside the caps there with some new Babbitt to show, and the cap alignment and rod alignment filed a notch in there a little deeper than what was from the factory. Put a little bit of white paint in there. It does help you to see it up inside that crankcase and confirm you got it right. This is one place you don't want to get a cap upside down. It is important. But I have pre-fitted this. What I'm trying to tell you here is I pre-fitted this here on the workbench. That's what I've been doing, is pre-fitting the rod to the crank. And ended up with an assortment of thicknesses of shims right there. I think it ended up about 5 on the bottom and like 5 on the top of assorted thicknesses. And I did try to use some thin ones so that in the future, if you needed to adjust for wear, you could remove the correct shim. If you've got all thick shims on there, say 10,000, and you only needed to remove a 5,000, then you got to make another shim. So I did it on the get-go right here, just kind of looking to the future. But that's pretty much what we're going to say about the crankshaft. Gear's good, and I did go ahead and re-stamp that timing mark there and highlight it with some white paint there. Makes it easy up inside that crankcase. And did go ahead there and find us a set of really good Babbitt bearings. The grease groove in there is really deep on both the top and the bottom. Very little wear. Lucky to find those. And I went on ahead and got us some shims out here, more than enough. And I'm just going to go ahead and put this crankshaft in here, and probably won't be a step by step, and you can go backwards on a couple of videos to see how that I fitted that crankshaft in there. You do one side first, and then loosen it up and do the other side, and then come back and do that side and do that side until you have a perfectly good balance of drag on each side. So probably when you see this again, we'll have the crankshaft in there. Now that we've got this side cover bolted on here, I did use a gasket sealer all on the inside there for no oil or air leaks. These did not come from the factory with a gasket. but when I put them together, I do put some sealer in there. But all that's tight, ready to go. And I know you're going to be thinking really quick right here is, oh, he done already messed up, now he won't be able to get that crankshaft in there. But I show you. The crankshaft from this side over here, the way you put that in there is you put the other side cover on, bolt it down, put the crankshaft across through yonder, and then when you come in here, there's I have found these crankshafts that you could not get in this way because of the casting right here, especially putting together an engine from parts. The casting on this housing here may have a bigger circle here on the inside, and then it may have more flash here. So all you need to do, if you can't get it in this way, is just take a grinder and grind off whatever is impeding the installation, grind it away. But you put this across through there, and then you have to find where that it will go in. So you just turn it around, raise it up on the other side, come around. Okay, right there. That's where the bigger opening is. Now at this part here, then you come over here, being careful not to scratch the crankcase at this point. I mean the bearing, and get the bearing right there so it'll rest on there. And in order to hold that on there, that it don't fall off, because I'm going to remove this and put some sealer in there, is the reason that I don't want to drive it up on those pins. But before I scratch the crankshaft, I want to lay the bearings in. Now at this point right here, there's been no attempt to align the timing gears as of yet. So at this point right here, if you want to align the timing gears, and it's a good time to do it, and you can see possibly you can see right in there those two gears that has the white paint on them are the two marked teeth on that gear. Okay, when you come around, right there is the marked tooth on the crankshaft gear. So what we need to do is to align those three together. And just raise this up, turn the inside gear, I'm turning it with the hand, turn this around like that right there, and when you turn it now, I can see it down in there that all three of those gears lines up with each other. It's 1, 2, 3, just in a line right there. So at this point, this engine is in time. Nothing else to say about the internal timing. There's, I mean, you can untime it, get it out here, turn this completely around, thinking, well, it's not right, and you come all the way around till you find those gear meshing back up, and you're in the same place. The same way as if you turn the crankshaft completely around, then you will end up with in the same place. So just align those three marks right there, and the crankshaft is lined. No ifs, ands, buts about it. And the marked tooth, remember, the marked tooth is always in line with the gib key, the keyway slot on the crankshaft. It's opposite of the throw. When you look in there, the timing mark will be in line with the gib key, keyway slot. That's all. And now what I'm going to do now, like I say, is I'll take this off, put some sealer on there, bolt that up tight, and then put the caps on. And probably to get us ahead a little bit, I have already laid out several, a thick one, and there's like 5 assorted thicknesses of the thin shims. And they will, the thick one goes on the bottom, and those goes right there. And the bolt comes up through yonder. And that's all there are to that. And remember, I have found it to be to the advantage of these McCormick-Deering Type M engines to put some sealer right here, because there's an air gap right there. When you bolt all this together, if you don't put some sealer in there, and there's no gasket goes here, when you put that cap on here, there will be an air gap right here. It'll leak oil, and it will also suck air in and out, in and out. And when you losing pressure on this type oiling system with this rear discharge check valve system that it has, and that's all that rear breather is a check valve, and in turn the pressure inside this crankcase sucks oil down through the drip oiler. So it's important that these crankcases be airtight, except for the rear breather. Now let's get on with the show. After a couple of comments that was left on the baling wire engine video, it was kind of some confusion as to this side play on the crankshaft. And what happens is this crankshaft, if these bearing flanges right here wires, then the crankshaft can move this way. There's a gap right in yonder, and that crankshaft can go sideways. If you can move your flywheels in a sideways motions, then they should be adjusted, and that's to compensate for wear on the babbitt bearing flange, and that's what that's for, or either on the crankshaft flange itself. But what happens if the other side wears and let that crankshaft come this way, that's what wears the timing mark away. And you can see on this gear right here, it shows a wear pattern. It's really slick. So well, I cannot confirm that it had side play, but that wear pattern does, and the timing mark was gone, and I punched it. But coming around, and you will notice too, when you're turning this crankshaft here to get it into time, see it matched up right there. Okay, when you come around a turn, then you don't match up again. You have to come 2 times. It's this gear in here is 2 times as big as that gear, twice the number, and it lines back up again. But when you put the flywheels on here, that's the reason that you set this side play halfway in the center of that. You measure it here, pull it back, measure it, and then you push it back in half that amount, and that gives you equal amount of clearance on both sides. That's the way that works. Just try to clear up a comment. Now that we got that crankshaft in there, one more piece. Got that there green paint on yonder, just a little bit, just enough to make it original. Got them there greasers installed in the bearing caps, and already have charged them with grease and tightened them down once till that grease went away inside and out. So that's good to go. The greaser on the camshaft charged with grease, and enough grease in it till it came out on the inside and outside. The crankshaft, like I say, is in. I did spend a considerable amount of time setting the shim, the clearance between the bearing and the shims, down to even a couple of 5/1000 shims in there extra instead of a 10/1000 so that they can be adjusted later. Next, we're going to put the piston in it, but first I'm going to install the flywheels because it's easier to turn the crankshaft when you're bringing that rod around in there. It's easier to turn that crankshaft to get the bolts back here to tighten them up if you've got the flywheels on it. Same story on this side. Adjusted the shims very well. It's not tight, but it's on the tight side because these will seat in quite rapidly. I did use some Permatex soft setting type on these flanges here, and some hard setting Permatex in that big gap down there because that's just too big. There's too much gap in there to use gasola in that. So we've got all of that done. Everything is complete as we see it here now. And I do have to put some valves in ahead there so the show goes on.